Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Idea. I need to get November wrapped up, but I'm not feeling well, and I really didn't want to get ready for the camera and do all of that while I'm not feeling well. So I'm going to sit here and sip my tea, and I'm going to put my books up here, and we are going to go through my November reads, not all of them, but most of them, and then we'll go from there. So thanks for coming by. If you don't need to see the books, this might be just a good time to put me in your pocket, pop your earbuds in, and do something else and just listen, because my face isn't going to be on screen for this video. So without further ado, let's jump in. But this one was the first one that I began and finished in November. This is Winter Notes on Summer Impressions by Fyodor Dostoevsky, translated by David Patterson. And this is a book that I thought was going to be like travel essays. When Dostoevsky was diagnosed with epilepsy, he had the opportunity to go find other countries where there were other treatments available, and so he basically went to travel and seek out different kinds of treatments for his epilepsy. But what started off as a little bit of a travelogue became quite a scathing sort of diatribe on Western culture versus Russian traditionality, and how much he hated it and hated that it was overtaking things. And it is not a bad thing to really love your culture and to almost mourn the things that are changing it, and changing it rapidly, and not necessarily changing it for the best, but it is hard to read, and especially from an author that I really love his philosophical kind of viewpoints, and there was nothing philosophical about this. It was just outright anger at times. Sometimes it was kind of snide. Really not a very common occurrence for me to like something by him that little. So Winter Notes on Summer Impressions, I don't think I'm going to keep it. I think I'm going to take it to my used bookstore. I'll put a picture up here of the next book that I read. It was nonfiction November, so that was what I kicked off reading Dostoevsky, and then I read one by Boyle, and it was called The Way Home, and it's his kind of life experiment of living completely without technology. And there were moments of it that I really, really enjoyed. And then there were moments where it was just felt a little bit like Dostoevsky, in the fact that he was just kind of berating some things about society, and I didn't absolutely love the book as a result. I liked the beginning of this book much, much more than the end of it. But I love that his family went along with him, that they did this great experiment. And I really enjoyed kind of his learning process and some things that I never would have thought about that came about as a result of him living this lifestyle for an entire year that turned into a little bit longer, actually. And then his like reintroduction into society with technology and all of these other things was also really hard for him. So it was hard to come out of, but it was almost as hard, if not just as hard, to go back to. So that was The Way Home by Mark Boyle. The next book that I finished was Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. This one I actually listened to. I got it through Libby. It was just kind of what I was hoping for. It was really cute. It was wintry, which I was not expecting. If you look at the cover of it, it really doesn't look like it's a wintry book, but it was wintry. It was cozy. It was set in Iceland for the most part. I think actually the whole thing was in Iceland, and she is out to find the tales and maybe proof of this fair folk that are only in this part of the world, supposedly. I just thought that it was so well done and very clean. I didn't see it as a romance fantasy novel. It was more fantasy and the discovery, and it's sort of like the Lady Trent series. She is a researcher, she is a teacher, and she wants to put together this complete encyclopedia of all known and unknown fair folk. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. This is another nonfiction that I read, and this was a spiritual biography of C.S. Lewis called A Life Observed. It's by Devin Brown, and C.S. Lewis's stepson, Douglas, does the foreword of this book, and I appreciated what he had to say as well. So he starts off basically saying a lot of people have written a lot of biographies on C.S. Lewis, but none of them really have anything new to say until now. That this is a well done, well researched, and well connected. The connections that Devin Brown makes between some things that happened and some things that came about later in life, way after the time that the initial things happened, and the way that he connects the dots. Douglas just felt like this was really different from any other biography that had been written about him. And I did enjoy it. I don't think that I like Devin Brown's writing very much. There was nothing that made me really fall in love with Lewis or the writing style. But it was still a well-researched book. I thought that it was well told. Devin Brown is a PhD, and it kind of shows in the way that it is written. Next, with my friend Courtney from Courtney Reads, I read several of the short stories, and we finished out this book. We had already read The Captain's Daughter together. I'll show you the list of stories here. So we had already read The Captain's Daughter together, and so we read all of the rest of these in this copy. So we read all of the tales of Belkin, the Shot, the Snowstorm, the Undertaker, the Postmaster, Mistress and Maid. Then we read the Queen of Spades. We read Kyrgyali, and then also the Negro of Peter the Great. My favorites in here were the Snowstorm and the Queen of Spades. And I really, really enjoyed the Queen of Spades especially. The Snowstorm was also very good, though. All of them were actually good, but there was one of them that Courtney and I were kind of like, I don't know what he's wanting to communicate here. Most of the time it was pretty easy to kind of pick out what it was he was trying to tell us, but in a couple of them it was like, I don't think I understand. But I love Alexander Pushkin's writing, and I do not find him hard to get into the story with, and the fact that he writes it in a way that is short and concise, and he says so much, is just amazing. And so Courtney and I are going to read some more Russian novels together in this next year, and short stories, and probably some plays. But I don't have any more Pushkin on my shelf right now, so I need to find some more Pushkin. I do not know where my copy of this book went, so I'll put a picture in here. But it is The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. It was a reread for me, and this was for Tiffany at Beautiful Minutia's Patreon. I have always liked this book, and this time was no different. Ray Bradbury's thought experiments that he does are, number one, fascinating, but number two, to think of the fact that it is more than 50 years old, and some of the things that were predicted in this book it was practically prophetic as far as what some of the inventions, some of the things that were happening, some of the warnings that he was giving, all of that kind of thing definitely have come to pass and are continuing to come to pass in this day and age. But what I love about Bradbury is that there's always this kind of it feels like a warning. It feels like somebody is trying to help you out. And so it feels very like good to just kind of sit in the thought of how can we keep this from moving into this direction, or is there anything that we can do to keep from moving in this direction? And so I'm still a Bradbury fangirl. Emperor Mage by Tamora Pierce. And this is the third book in the Immortals series that I am reading through with Victoria from A Musical Bookworm and Christy from Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. And this was actually my favorite one so far. So is about our main character, Dane, and she continues to grow up and grow into a very uncommon and misunderstood, or not even misunderstood, but not understood magic that she has. And the next book is the final in the series, and then we move on to another heroine in this same world. And so I'm enjoying the Immortal series so much more than the Song of the Lioness series that we did prior to this. And I think this one is much more, number one, age appropriate, but also I think Tamora Pierce is becoming a much better author by this third book in this series. And this is Jesus Among Other Gods by Ravi, Zacharias, The Absolute Claims of the Christian Message. I read this because I wanted some apologetics. This was really, really good. I know that Ravi Zacharias, since his death, has some things have come out about him that it doesn't sound like he practiced what he preached. But I will say that when you are teaching truth, whether you are living into that truth or not, the truth does not change. He is a good debater, and the way that he connects the dots for you as a student was just fabulous. All right, next I read Silverborn, The Mystery of Morgan Crow. And it is one of the Nevermore books. It's by Jessica Townsend. I'd been meaning to read this for quite a while, but I was waiting for my library to get it. And when they did, I was actually the very first one to read it from my library. But there were certain things that I really liked about this book and certain things that I could have completely done without. Morrigan in this story kind of discovers some secrets that have been being kept from her by people that she really trusts, and she has to make some decisions and choose some things for her life, based on who she knows these people that she trusts to be, or is she going to make decisions out of the hurt of not being told something that she feels she should have been told. And so I kind of liked the journey that she took in order to get there. They should have had stronger consequences, I guess. And another thing is that Morrigan also was withholding information from these same people that she's known and loved now for several books. And she couldn't see that what she was doing was the exact same thing that had been done to her. I think if you were reading this as a parent with your kids, that there would be some great discussion that would come out of it. And so I liked it for that reason. The things that I liked so much about the first book, weren't really existing at all in this one. There are just some things from the first book that I wish they would have kept, and they did not. Another final book in a series, I read Blacklight Born, and this is the last of the combat codes by Alexander Darwin. I say it's the last, but it didn't wrap up in a way that I would have expected a final book to wrap up. It's very much like an MMA kind of fight fantasy world, or not even fantasy. I would say it's almost science fiction. It feels like it's futuristic in the fact that there are all kinds of technologies and things available that we don't know anything about. And it feels almost dystopian, in like there was a war and now there are these Grievar knights that fight each other so that the rest of civilization doesn't have to fight. And the combat codes are kind of the Grievar knights' Bible. The way that it wrapped up didn't feel like there was enough weight to the solution or the outcome, not even solution. It just didn't fit. It didn't feel right. So I'm wondering if he's writing another book in the series, or if he isn't writing one in this particular series, if he's starting another series in this same world. So still really liked it. It is quite violent. Like, you are going to experience blood, you're going to experience pain. So the first book, I could really handle it. The second book I still liked, but it was more intense. This one amps up the intensity to the maximum because it was too much at times for me. All right, so next I have another nonfiction. This is Death Be Not Proud by John Gunther. The title actually comes from, is it Thomas Dunn? A poem that is by the same name. And this is a memoir or biography of his son Johnny. Was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and until his death at the age of 17. And he is just kind of recounting all of the things that he doesn't really want to forget about who his son was during this time. I didn't come to know and love Johnny the way that he speaks about knowing and loving Johnny. So we get told a lot of facts and moments, but I don't feel like I ever really get to know Johnny himself. It's beautiful, told well, of Johnny's courage, of his wit, and his kind of quiet friendliness that he conveyed to so many. And then just his patience, his great patience that he had in the face of having to be disappointed with the outcome of a treatment or with the outcome of a surgery. fighting his way back to continue his education, but still not being well and never regaining a fullness of life. It did feel journalistic, and it didn't feel quite like I was getting to know the person so much as I was just being let in on some of the facts of the way that people around him and he himself was responding to things. Sorry if the angle is different. I knocked over my tripod when I was getting the next book. So this is An Old-Fashioned Girl by Louisa May Alcott. This is a reread for me, or was a reread for me. I read this many, many years ago for the first time, and it has been not many years since I read it the last time. I tend to reread this one and Little Women probably the most out of all of them. An Old-Fashioned Girl is about Polly, not Fanny. It reminds me, the storyline reminds me a little bit of Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. But she's a young girl who has cousins in the big city, is going to visit them, and she has never been to the big city, and she has a very quiet life in her home in the country. And so it's basically just about the way that change happens without it changing her for the worse. And I think I really like this book for the simple fact that instead of someone knowing what's wrong and then doing that wrong thing anyway and suffering the consequences and learning from that and then growing from that, this instead chooses to put our main character through many situations where there are wrong opportunities, and she chooses time and time again to not do the wrong thing, to not go down that path. And yet she doesn't alienate people. She doesn't make them feel that she is being superior. And yet Louisa May Alcott does not shy away from showing us the struggle that she has to do what is right. And it's just beautiful. So Louisa May Alcott's An Old-Fashioned Girl. It's Saga Land. This is by Richard Fidler and Kari Gíslason. I think Gíslason, maybe. Whoa. I just knocked it again. Sagaland is supposed to be a history of Iceland told through sagas. And I had read another book by Fidler that I really enjoyed called Ghost Empire, which is about Byzantium and settling, no, anyway, when the founding of Constantinople. And so I enjoyed that one. And that was like a trip that he took with his son. It was kind of a coming of age trip for him, for his son. And his son would ask a question, and Fidler would tell the history, the progression of history, as his son asked questions about different places that they were, things that they were seeing, his own understanding of what had gone on. And so I really enjoyed Ghost Empire. This one was kind of Kari's story. Kari is Icelandic by birth and grew up there, and then moved away to Australia, which is where he met Fidler. And Fidler and he went back to Iceland many times in search of Kari's father, and also the way that Kari is connected to one of the major players in one of the sagas of Iceland. And so it really ended up being more of the way that Kari was connected to Iceland through the sagas than it was about the history of Iceland through sagas. And I'm not saying we don't get any history, we do, but it constantly is related back to Kari and his family. And I thought it was fine. Iceland sagas are weird. They are so strange, and they are gory, and which is also something that I really didn't enjoy in this particular book, that wasn't present at all in Ghost Empire. And then another thing that wasn't present in Ghost Empire that I really didn't appreciate about this book was the profanity. I would have thought that a book on history and trying to bring those sagas to life, you wouldn't have interjected so much of a modern lingo, I guess, into the text. But I did listen to this. I didn't read it, and it's read by the authors. I didn't really love it. What's really strange is I read several books this month, and am currently reading a book with an Icelandic setting, and I don't think I've ever had that happen before. Next is Spilling the Beans on the Cat's Pajamas. This is another nonfiction. It's popular expressions and what they mean and how we got them. And it is a Reader's Digest version. Literally, it's from Reader's Digest. But it's also a Reader's Digest version in the fact that it is very concise. They're not long entries. And I would have preferred that it be like maybe several volumes. I think that the entries be a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth. And then also that there were more popular expressions that were included. They are fun, and I will keep this book and use it as a reference. I did laugh quite a bit at some of the ways that we got some of these expressions and what they mean. Chance by Joseph Conrad. This was supposed to be a buddy read with Christy and Tiffany. Tiffany, this was not capturing her attention and wasn't holding her attention. when she was reading it. And so she decided to DNF it. And I think Christy is still reading it. And when Tiffany bowed out, I just went ahead and plowed on through and got to the end of this one. This is told by the same narrator as Heart of Darkness and Lord Jim. His name is Marlowe. And wow, got really bright all of a sudden. And he is not a likable character. And this was supposed to be kind of a feminist novel. But I think the only thing that's really feminist about this novel is that Joseph Conrad shows the plight of women in this day and age, as far as just what men thought about them, what men felt like their place was in the world, and what they had no choices about. But that's it, basically, because our narrator is male. Our journalist who is writing down everything that Marlowe says is male. And there are 4 other males who we get story perspective from through Marlowe. But that's it. Or through our journalist guy. So we never really get the perspective of the 2 women in this story directly. And I wouldn't say that any of them are super likable characters. This is about a young girl whose father is accused of a crime when she is quite young, and she goes to live with other parts of her family until they find out that she has no money, and then they cast her out. She has people she calls friends, but they, in the end, don't seem to really be that even. And so she ends up making a decision that really kind of challenges the truth of whether this family loves her or not. Also proves out whether the other woman in the story is truly a feminist or not, or if she just is spouting something to be important. So anyway, I ended up actually liking the story overall, but it was very difficult to get through because of the characters themselves and just not liking any of them, except for I did actually like our main character, but we just never hear from her, and we never get much from her until the very, very end of the book. And it was the end of the book that made me actually like it. So I think if we would have had more from her, I would have liked it much, much more. So that's it, you guys. Those were the books for November, nonfiction November, for the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. That is all I have for you today. I hope that this was okay, because like I said, I'm just not feeling well. Enjoying my December reads so far. I hope that you are, and I will be back very soon with another video, and I'll talk to you then.